Well, purpose of Refugee Week is to raise awareness in general Australian public about who refugees are and why they're coming in Australia, why they're seeking safety, to help people understand what it is that brought refugees here and the challenges they face both through their process of escaping the country of origin but also settling in Australia. And to me, very importantly, to help people understand what refugees, what we have to contribute to Australian society if we get the right support at the start and if we have environment that helps us grow and thrive. Well, the first thing I'd like them to take is that anyone can become a refugee, that your colour or country of birth doesn't determine whether you are a refugee or not. I'm from Bosnia. I grew up there, and I never thought that wars could happen in a country like mine, and yet it did. And I'm sure that people arriving from Ukraine now feel the same, as do many others. And the other thing I'd like people to take away is that we're all human, so that common humanity and the importance of common humanity and compassion is something I think we all need to have and share. And last but not least is, again, going back to that contribution that refugees make to the things that we bring to this country and the things that we can do to make it better. So, for those of us who have arrived to Australia as on permanent protection visas through the humanitarian program, all one can say is that we have an excellent settlement services and excellent support for those who have arrived on refugee and humanitarian visas. However, for those who have arrived to Australia and sought asylum once here, the situation is very different. There's challenges of access to income, long-term, protracted wait on decision about protection. There are temporary protection visas which do not allow people to reunite with their families and where they have to continue proving that they're refugees. There is indefinite immigration detention for some. So if you seek asylum in a community, it is much more difficult, and there is much that needs to be improved, such as no more temporary protection visas, such as no more indefinite detention, no children in detention. And that should be legislated. And support healthcare and financial support for people who are seeking asylum while in the community. I think Sri Lankan community has got many assets and a lot of potential to support its own refugees and asylum seekers entering community. And probably the most important is being open-hearted and open-armed. And many of the community members already are. That would be then through mentoring, through provision of helping people understand the country they find themselves in, through offering friendship and reducing social isolation, because people are often very alone when they're in a community seeking asylum. But also Sri Lankan Tamil businesses can provide employment and can provide, again, mentoring or work experience, because many need work experience as well, to be able to make a living for themselves and often their families who are still overseas. The Refugee Council has a number of roles. One is awareness raising, and that's why we spoke about Refugee Week. The next one is advocacy and policy input, and also research into various matters concerning refugees and asylum seekers in Australia. So they're the three major roles that it plays. I think organizations in communities have got an incredibly important role to play, because they are the main bridge between their community and a wider service system. And with mental health being such a stigma in many communities, organizations such as TADAM can encourage community members to see mental health as not something that should be ashamed of, but as an important element of everyone's life, and educate people that seeking mental health assistance does not bring shame to person or to the family. And through that education and bridge building, TADAM can make sure that people in Tamil community have access to the services that they need at the time that they need them. So I think, again, it's an incredibly important role to play, and I'm very glad that TADAM has emerged as a mental health promotion organisation in Tamil community.
So the impact of immigration detention on mental health. There are several factors. Most obviously, you have a very vulnerable group of people, often with past trauma, who are detained. Then, of course, you've got issues with the detention environment itself, separation from family, a loss of autonomy over small things day to day, these sort of daily indignities. I guess perhaps the most significant factor in my experience has been the potentially indefinite nature of detention, though. So the thing that bothers people the most is the fact that they don't know when or if they'll be released. In terms of the impact that detention has on children, it's quite, I think, devastating is not an overstatement there. So we see this in mental health outcomes, behaviours, which may traditionally be seen as challenging, and failing to meet developmental milestones, amongst some other things as well. And these things are generally compounded over time, and by the fact that detention changes family dynamics, disempowers parents, and really that doesn't help either. So I think I can say with quite a bit of confidence that no detention environment is suitable for children for any period of time, really. And in terms of how we can support people in the community, the Sri Lankan community, the broader Australian community, in my experience, no matter the impact of detention, most people retain some hope that they will one day be released. So in many respects, people are quite resilient, particularly given the adversity they faced. In terms of supporting people in the community, I would say start with the basics, and recognise that often the support they get from the government and elsewhere isn't often adequate. So in this respect, community is key. Most people haven't had the opportunity to stop and process their experiences. Some haven't had a home-cooked meal in several years. Many have little knowledge of the bureaucracy that sort of waits outside of detention, so Medicare and Centrelink and other government agencies. Some people might need support with accommodation. So I think the thing that can tie all of this together is community, having people around them who understand their language, their culture, who can listen and support in this transition.